Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of The Hammer of Truth. As always, I am Mike.
And I am Miriam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Today's episode is going to talk about something big that happened this week. The State of the Union happened. And this was, I tell you, Miriam, this was probably the craziest State of the Union that I have ever seen. Personally, I felt mostly good, but obviously there were some really interesting things from both sides. I definitely didn't agree with everything that was said, but the biggest, we'll start out quick. The biggest argument before the State of the Union happened was always that Joe Biden is too old. He's got dementia. He's got no energy. There's no way he can't even handle talking. Well, he handled it for 66 minutes. He had energy. If you didn't know he had a stutter, he has a stutter. So the fact that he talked for 66 minutes and only had some breaks here and there is a lot more than I can say for a few other people that talk on the internet all the time, including myself.
Yeah. How long's Trump given us? Just I don't know. I've never been able to watch him that long.
Me neither. Me neither. I definitely can only watch him in spurts. But in terms of this whole idea that he is too old to handle being able to do that part of it, I think he showed that he at least has the capability of doing it. Whether he has the capability of doing it for another 4 years, that's a whole different question. But they're saying that he can't handle it right now, and obviously he did. Again, regardless of whether you agree with everything he said on it, we're just talking about the part of whether he even could do it in the first place.
But I can get behind that. And his doctor said that, he's working out 5 days a week. Hopefully that's more than, the walk from the. Yeah, anyway.
He does bike. There's a lot of thing of him biking, so he does do it.
Yeah, and I mean, my gosh, while I'm not thrilled with his age, my great grandparents lasted to 100. So in terms of that, he's got some wear left in him, But yes, his age worries me.
Yep.
But we are looking at both him and Trump there. So
both of the ages. Both of the ages are worrying. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
There have been videos. Obviously, we only talk about it for a second, but there have been videos of Trump where he literally was in the midst of a sentence and then just went, I don't care how much you like a guy. That is frightening. That is not anything. Biden has never even come close to that in any speech that he has had his stutter hit for a second. I don't know what happened to Trump in those moments.
No, his dementia is the one that's probably kicking in, because what do we say? That every single accusation is a projection. So they're the ones coming out with that accusation. So it's probably Trump, that's something.
Well, they want the
focus.
I mean, and it makes sense. They want the focus to change at the moment. The focus is becoming on Trump when it's bad. And when you want to change that focus, you say, oh, no, look at this, look at this, look at this. So, I mean, that's where our arguments always struggle with members of the MAGA, especially, is they don't want to admit that there is a problem, let alone what the problems are.
Absolutely. I agree. And I know a lot of people are talking third candidate right now, and I don't love either of our candidates. And I am uncommitted at this point, but I just don't see a third party candidate that's going to pick up during this election. I love the heart behind it. I love the movement.
Idea. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. But the idea is we're just not going to pick up enough of the moderate constituents with a third party. I think the individuals making a movement with the uncommitted are going to have far more of an effect on than somebody that's going to move to a third party.
And I have said this before, and I want everyone that's listening to hear me. If you truly want a third party candidate to have a viable chance in our elections, it doesn't matter what year you're talking about, stop focusing on the presidency. Stop focusing on the presidency. Third party people need to start running for local and state offices. You need to start showing the country, the people, what you stand for. You will not get that once every 4 years. I don't care how hard you try.
Well, and we talked about it too the last time, as far as individuals, words.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. See, we could give Donald Trump a hard time when we do it sometimes.
That's
too,
true.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, we can, but that's for different reasons,
Yes,
not for the talking part.
But yeah, so reframe me, Mike. What were we talking about?
We were talking about third-party candidates.
Yeah, and they're just not going to have the pool. They don't have the pool to pull the moderates. And in a year where so much is going on and your independents are highly uncommitted, that's what you're talking about. Our local elections.
Yes.
So I'm
sorry, local elections. Yes, correct.
So our local elections, yes, they're incredibly important. And we touched on this in one of our last episodes where you had stated we have put so much focus now into our presidential elections that we have failed to realize just how much impact our local elections have.
The fact is if you live in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi and Florida, or North Carolina, how big getting those local and state elections, like how much those can affect everything more even than the presidency.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm one of the most left, and Mike can attest, one of the most left people that you will meet.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of a third. My realistic side doesn't think that is something that we can accomplish, and we are wasting our energy there.
I'm not the most left person you will ever meet, but I still love the idea of a third party candidate. I think the reason third party candidates are good is they push ideas that are outside of the norm. And I think that's important. The reason that we're struggling is we've got one that doesn't want new ideas. We've got one party that doesn't want new ideas. We've got another that wants enough new ideas that it speaks enough to the people that are even farther progressive. But in the end, I wouldn't be surprised if only about a third to a half tops of like the Democratic Party have more progressive ideas than we want LGBTQ to have the same rights. We want maybe things like free education and free healthcare tops, like some of the basic stuff. But in the end, the problem that third-party candidates, especially ones that technically lean even more on the progressive side, is they don't do a good job they do fine in saying what they want, but they don't do a good job in saying how they actually want to get there. So what happens is especially the moderates, the independents, anyone who leans at least more towards the center, they hear things like, they hear the word communism, they hear the word socialism, they've been taught that it means one thing, even though it doesn't. But even more than that, they can't picture in their head how that would look and how that would actually be better for them, because they've been taught one way for so long that they can't picture it. And it's on the people that think that we should go that way to say, okay, you don't think that it will work. Here's how it would work.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, and not only that, but you have the Republican Party currently reinforcing those roles. Look at the Republican response.
Yeah.
From start to finish. That, I mean, it put her in the kitchen.
Yeah. So, okay, you want to go? We'll go there, and then we go back, because I want to go deeper into the State of the Union and get your thoughts on the different parts that Biden talked about. But we'll go right to the response first. For those of you that I'm sure are very aware, the junior the junior senator from Alabama, Katie Britt,
The rising star of the Republican
the rising
Party.
star of the Republican Party, gave a very, let's go with impassioned. We'll be nice to start and say an impassioned speech from her kitchen about as a response to the State of the Union. And I think the way that I described it to you was 1950s Christian mom commercial mixed with a soap opera.
Yeah.
And
you cussed. You never cussed.
I did.
You're like, this is horrible.
Yep. You'll if for any of you new, you will know how upset I am about anything. I don't have an issue with cussing, but I don't do it unless I am really, really angry or upset about something. I'll let you give us your thoughts first, and then I'll go into some facts about that talk that I think that came to light that are very interesting.
Oh, I mean, first off, I will say, and we're going to get to see it play out here. I did not love Joe Biden's State of the Union. And this is one of those episodes where you're going to get to see how where we don't necessarily align, we're still going to be able to communicate. But, when I watched her response, my jaw was on the floor the whole time. And did you ever watch the show Barry? It had a Caruso. Anyway, it was just this over the top acting. And this I felt like I was watching an acting performance take place. But she touched on every amount of all of the propaganda points of the Republican Party, and now we have Chinese communism, buying up our farms. She met the girl that was...
Which is true, by the way. The Chinese government does own land in the United States.
Have we known that for a while, though?
We have known that for a while.
Yeah. And then...
it's in red states, by the way, may I add. It is not in Democrat-run states that China owns land.
Yeah, it's always, again, every accusation is projection, folks. But it was just, and just everything happening around it, from the cross on her neck to we are bringing in God. I was
waiting for her to just go like this while she was talking and be like, I think I'm going to faint.
Well, I kept thinking of Kappa. Like, I just, but yeah, I was with you when I wanted to cry. I'm like, this is where we are right now. That is the rising star of the Republican Party.
But is that surprising? No. That it's what makes someone a rising star in the Republican Party is they think the exact same way as the rest of the Republican Party, except they're young.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating is that they put a woman on there to appeal to women voters within the Republican Party. That's as much recognition as women would get within a Trump presidency. I know that we saw women in and out of his administration, but he is never going to put them in an actual position of authority within his cabinet. So this is manipulation at its finest.
I will also point out that of the last two State of the Unions, they have both been women from Alabama that have done the responses both times. The last two.
Excellent observation. Yeah.
And both are crazy. But I feel, I know everyone likes that statement of you get what you voted for, but let's be fair. Not everyone in Alabama voted for their governor, who is crazy, or Katie Briggs. So I feel bad for those ones.
Absolutely. Well, and when people say that, it's one of, so many people are like, we're just going to leave the red states. I feel like it's unfair because you're forgetting that the innocent people that are left there that had absolutely, in the same way that we did, no say in how the government played out, and we can't abandon them. So,
and again, the other thing, to be fair, people say that about Texas all the time. People don't realize that Texas is 1% away from being a blue. It's practically a purple state in terms of if you look at their actual voting records, at least on presidential elections. The problem still is that people don't come out and vote in anywhere, which is why they keep winning everywhere else. But we'll see. This year is going to be interesting. But I want to go back to Katie Briggs for a second. The biggest situation to come after that, other than even Republicans in general hated it.
Said it was one of the worst mistakes that they had made. Yeah.
The other occurrence to come from it was she lied, or she fibbed to the extent that it pretty much was a lie, even though she's trying to backtrack and say that she didn't. For those of you that didn't hear it, she talked about how after she was voted into office, she took a trip to, I can't remember the city in Texas, and talked to this woman who was basically sex trafficked by
Cartel.
By the cartel. That's right. She said by the cartel,
and it was right outside the border.
And it was a border town.
Yeah.
And that's all. That basically said that's all because of Biden's immigration policies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of a TikToker who did some research, we found out that the woman that she spoke to is someone who has been speaking about this for years. In fact, this occurrence happened during George Bush's administration in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually talked before some subcommittee about her situation in terms of the problems with sex trafficking in the cartel. She's been telling the story everywhere.
Spot on for the Republican Party.
It's spot on.
Full stop. It's spot on. If you ever needed more evidence of how they roll, I expected
nothing less.
Yeah.
And yet there's part of me that always hopes that it will be different. I don't know if you remember, but 2020 for a while was called the year that shall not be named. I know you call a certain country the country that shall not be named.
Yeah.
I've heard people call 2024 already, like January 5th. I saw someone saying that 2024 is going to become the year that shall not be named. I was talking with my wife a while back, like a month or so back, and I was just like, I don't think I have ever wanted it to be 2030 faster in my life. I want from the moment the 2020 started, it has been one absolutely batshit crazy thing to another.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you'd think, and not to discount other generations and what they've been through.
Of course. It's just,
World
War II, that was a pretty bad time. The Great Depression, that was a pretty bad time. So obviously there have been equally bad but for different reasons.
Yeah.
But for our generation, for our group of people, this is 2020 is going to be, and we're not even halfway through it yet.
No. And let's go back. I'm interested. We had a good discussion about the State of the Union.
Yes.
Via text.
Yes.
So, and what, again, it's like somebody that's not as moderate and more progressive. I like to be able to speak to what did not thrill us on our side.
Sure.
As much as I can.
Yeah.
So, and for me, I want to say I went into the last election. I volunteered for Biden. I was full on there, and
Mm-hmm.
I was up until, the part of the world that must not be named.
Mm-hmm.
He had my vote, uncontested. It was there.
Yeah.
And listening to a State of the Union, I felt like we were hearing a lot of the same things that we heard when he ran back in 2020. So that was
fair.
It was like, I'm not Trump. I will help with Roe. I will help with student loans. And it's like, yes, but that's what we heard last time. And I know you're going to be like, but he was blocked in Congress.
Divided government.
Yes. So, I know there's definitely some of that going on, but it really bothered me that I felt like his,
Okay. And I understand. And arguably to an extent, at least, I agree. It was a lot of the same. My question then becomes, what do you feel, except for calling for a complete ceasefire, which we, I know that's what you want. And I know a lot of listeners probably are going to want it too. Whether we like it or not, it's just not going to happen. Not yet. He isn't there yet. And I know we'll talk about the 6-week thing. I have different thoughts on it than I know you do, but What else other than that could he have actually said that would have made you lean the other way? Or do you think that for people like you, who what's going on over in Israel is there's nothing? Like, in the end, would you have believed anything he said? I guess is the question.
And I loved it. You totally called me out when we talked, because you're like, I don't think there was anything he could have said to make you happy. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of fair.
And to an extent, I feel like that is somewhat of a problem.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not saying anyone needs to love Biden, but I feel like the people that are calling that are voting uncommitted and calling for a full out ceasefire. I don't, because we're at and I know I know in your mind that your mind goes, well, then he should just not be running in the first place. If nothing you say is going to convince me, that feels like, and enough people are saying it, that should be obvious enough to the Democratic Party that they should put someone else in. Well, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not even that it's not. It's the DNC or Biden or both feel that the number of people in the middle is greater than the number of people that are feeling that way. And in order to win, you have to get some of this and a lot of this, because that's the way our country is split currently. Because I've said, I really feel we are at this 50-50 crossroad right now, which is why it is so divisive, why we're beating each other down so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that question where you said, like, what could he have possibly, because I don't think that anything would have made you, I don't, and I have a dog, folks, apologies. And in that question, I was really able to kind of like go into myself and ask myself that question. And I think for me, I was discussing about why this has been in my therapy session with my therapist, why this has been such a difficult process, this deconstruction process for me, right? And it's, and I've got a hard pass, but for me, it's like finding out that every institution that's been in my life that's been meant to protect me isn't protecting me. And that's a hard swallow. And I mean, that's not just the American government anymore. That now goes, and as you found out, to my faith. Yeah. Now, looking at, I'm now dealing with that disappointment from a government level. But I feel like, when I look at other toxic relationships in my life, I'm not looking for resolve. I'm looking for accountability. And I think for me, my problem is he's not even acknowledging the severity of what Israel is doing. If I could see some amount of pushback on Netanyahu I just don't feel like he's doing that.
What you're saying is you want more of a public pushback, because we cannot say one way or another that there isn't pushback. We're just not seeing it publicly. He is playing more of a political game where, at least that's what you hear a lot of people saying, where he is pushing hard in private, but he is publicly trying to at least allow Israel to save some level of face, even though I don't think there's any level of face they can save at this point. But regardless of that, whether they should be, whether we want them to be, Israel has been one of America's staunchest allies for the last 70 years, whatever. We have set it up in our country that you don't treat your staunchest allies like crap in public, whether they deserve to be treated like crap or not.
Yeah, but I think what I would argue is that in any toxic dynamic, you're going to have somebody that says this is wrong, and it's time that we adapt some change.
Absolutely. And I have said it to you and on videos many times that I think the biggest problem that we as a foreign in our foreign relations has ever been, and specifically in this case, is the fact that we aren't publicly saying this is wrong.
Exactly.
At least not to the level that it should have been. Definitely not fast enough. Obviously things are changing, at least slowly. I mean, you're definitely hearing more. You're hearing more even from Biden and his administration. You are hearing a level of calling them out and saying it's unacceptable, to a level that they were not doing 3 months ago.
Absolutely. But now, now you have within this point, how much of that is manipulation because we're leading up to primaries?
But and see, and
Yeah, I
I knew you
know.
were going to say it. And here's my
I
here's
know
my
what you're
reaction
gonna
to that.
say.
When isn't
Yeah,
a vote
I
happening?
know.
Every year it's local. Every 2 years it's midterm or a general. That is, it's always. And in a world where they're always trying to make money, where the internet is everywhere, everything can be looked at that way. There's this desire to believe our politicians, but we've been shown many times that we can never fully believe our politicians. And we've known that for years, and yet somehow we are always surprised when we realize that we can't fully trust our politicians. So why do we act surprised? Why do we pretend it's anything other than, yeah, he's trying to win an election?
Because some of us are really naive, okay?
Yeah, but also, and I will take it another step, when we're talking about the 6-week thing, because you're not the only mutual I have that has made the comment of, well, now is this, are we, fine, now that it's the election, it's like, I want to make a couple things at least clear, that are clear to me, at least in my mind. October 7th was still election season. We just hadn't started the primaries yet. It hasn't been that long since this whole thing happened. I think it feels like it's been years.
Yeah.
Because we all feel older now because I think we have all aged, a couple years in 4 months, but it's only been 5 months now. 5 months since this all happened, which is crazy.
Days.
It was the election time before that, in November when he did it. And also, if the pressure wasn't working, I don't think a 6-week would have even been on the table.
That is fair, but here's my pushback for this, okay?
Give it to me.
Because while I hear you, that they are finally starting to shift their narrative, they are also still trying to censor us. We have a TikTok ban on the table right now. They're trying to take that pressure off the table. In a way, because I don't see it happen. And I'm not on Instagram, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see the pressure happening on Instagram necessarily that I hear that it's happening on TikTok.
So there's 2 things that I would say. There was 2 things that I would say to that. One, Instagram, Meta, and X are basically considered the Wild West of social media. There's no protections on anything.
No.
So,
and I'm not on either of those platforms.
So the one pushback I would have on that is, while I understand, because we both deal with it, when the internet and social media became a big thing, the government, the people, the companies did not do a good job trying to figure out a good way to deal with misinformation, because we have never, up until the last 10 years especially, we've never had to deal with the level of information that we deal with now.
Comes in more rapidly, but can you say that? Like, you could say that about any public forum, right? You can't control information. This is just how quickly. I mean, when I think about, the 1950s.
But you can. That's what terms of service are supposed to do. The problem.
That's fair.
The problem comes is when the government. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want the government to have control, but regulations are still important, because there is not a good understanding by the people in power, because they're all old, of how the internet works. What's not happening is they're not looking at it and saying, okay, how can we deal with things like misinformation in a safety setting? So it gives these companies clarity on how they deal with things like misinformation in any direction. So what's happening right now is TikTok has a terms of service. And because TikTok is crazy popular and there's 170 million Americans on it, you have people on it that their job is to try and censor people. Like, they're trolls. Their job is to just cause chaos. So what's happening is, in TikTok's desire to and I know not everyone will agree with me, but I think there is at least some level of desire to protect the people that are on TikTok. And I only say that because if people don't feel safe at all, they're not going to keep using it.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue people are still on Facebook. Yeah.
I'm not.
That's me either. Yeah. But yes, I'm sorry.
So, but what I think what's going on now because of that is they are trying to deal with it. They're trying to let the people self-regulate, and then only coming into play and actually doing things when the self-regulation by the people, like when something is like when someone mass reports and then someone appeals, then finally someone potentially looks at it and sees whether it needs to stay there or not. There's so much to it, and it is so complicated. I am glad I do not work for TikTok.
Yeah.
And have to deal with it.
What's considered misinformation? Who's going to be viewing through that
Of course.
Because, like in this situation in particular, right, we are finding out so much of the history that we have known has been, a false narrative or an edited narrative. Or if you look at the Zionists and what they're doing, trying to deem anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, that would be deemed misinformation. So, my concern is, while I agree with you, we have to address the massive amounts of misinformation that are pouring in, not just from the left, but from the right, because it does harm us.
Sure.
It's how do we do that in an effective manner that protects people's freedom of speech?
And this goes back to my earlier point. You don't see it because all you're hearing is we need to handle the information, but your brain can't picture how that moves forward. When you know how that moves forward, we get a bunch of people, whether it's our government or other people outside of it or companies or I don't know how we go around. We build a company and we try and do it ourselves. You have to talk about it and say, how can we do this? And maybe the answer will be we can't. And maybe the answer will be the only way that we will take down misinformation is if it has the potential of physically endangering someone's life. Like it's possible that it could get to, I will admit that. But the problem comes when we say, what can we do? What can we do? I don't see how this works. And that's all we say. We kind of just stays there. That's what's happening right now. We say, how do we control firearms? Like, I don't see how we could do it. Whose job is it to decide if someone's mentally fit? Well, let's talk about it and figure out how we can actually do that. They don't want to. They want to keep their firearms. So they just say that as a way of pushing it off and just saying, we can't do it because I can't see in my head how we get there.
Yeah. Well, and not even seeing that I don't see how it is that we can get there. Like I'm looking at, who's potentially lining up to buy TikTok in the event that it is sold here in America. And what we are looking at, and again, we know that the media in our country, American news is largely entertainment now. They've come out in full force, said that.
Sure, absolutely.
So a lot of action.
Some more than others. I think there are some that try, some lean to their bias a little bit more than we would like. And I'd say most of them, at least 50% try. And there's definitely some that just, they literally are straight entertainment and everyone listens to them as news. So anyways, keep going. Sorry.
Fox.
Sorry. Is there something in your throat? Was that a cough? Okay.
No, just a fox. Okay. Anyway. So we've seen that there is a definite attempt to control the narrative within our media. And I think so many people have appreciated TikTok. Well, again, we are dealing with massive amounts of information, and the narrative isn't controlled, by the oligarchy. So many individuals are going to fear our government becoming involved because of what we've seen play out on the other media outlets within our country.
Yeah.
And I think that's
fair. That's fair.
It's scary.
It's in it, and I will straight up admit it is not an easy. None of this is going to be an easy answer, and I hate to say it because I'm sure people will get hurt in the end. we're going to have to learn by trial and error. Something this complicated is not like, we can't get 10 people together and talk about it and have an answer that we know will work. Our country is too complicated in order to even believe that that's like, people are too complicated in order to believe we cannot think of every possible outcome of every law we make, which is one of the reasons laws oftentimes don't get made, because we feel like once you make a law, it's sometimes really hard to unmake the law. But until we try, sometimes we don't know, we won't know whether it will work or not.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fair, but you have, and so many individuals are talking about, Facebook, and how the small businesses are being affected. But what we're also not looking is you now have a large group of people that are now running businesses off TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
You now have individuals like myself. This is my job. This is what I do.
Yep.
This is my source of income. It's a very, very, very small source of income. But it pays for the things that I do to do my job,
Someone asked me just recently, is this my job? And I said, well, I guess it depends on what your definition of job is. Do I make some money? Yes. But if you take the amount of money that I make on at least at the time of making this video, who knows what life would change. If you look at the amount of hours that I put in and the amount of money that I make back, you could barely say I'm making money.
Yeah, I'm not. I am, again, I think I would imagine I'm breaking even by microphones or, whatever the case is to continue my platform.
True.
So, and not a complaint. I feel like this is how, we've discussed.
Absolutely.
I am privileged. I'm a stay-at-home mom. This is how I can put some good back into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern again is what happens to all of these individuals should this ban go through?
Yeah.
And again, 170 million individuals on TikTok. I asked my son, who is 15, I said, what social media apps do you guys use? I said, any of them. And he said, just TikTok. That's it. That is the only way that, Gen Z and Gen A seem to, they aren't even interested. He says he has Instagram, but he's never on it, So it's such a disregard for what the constituents are saying. And we're seeing that play out on a number of issues. And that's incredibly disheartening. And for Biden, it's not good.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. And again, the one thing that keeps going through my head that I know most people hate it when I say it is it possible that the members of the House, especially the Intelligence Committee, know something about China that we don't? And I'm not saying they do. I'm not saying I've listened to their arguments, and most of them are absolutely ridiculous, if not all of them. They sound out of touch with reality. But I also know some congressmen who I respect, at least as much as you can respect congressmen right now. But like Jeff Jackson, who's a big TikTok user, like he's huge on TikTok. He owns a second phone, and he uses that phone only for TikToks because he is on the Armed Forces Committee and the Intelligence Committee.
Well, it is banned from federal devices, correct?
But I mean, personally, he has two phones. Oh, he
keeps it off his personal. I see. Okay, yeah.
Now, I don't disagree. I'm not saying that he's not being paranoid. He might just be being paranoid. But we don't know what kind of top secret. We don't. That
is fair. I guess so. My pushback on that would be is Zuckerberg. I call him this on purpose. He sold our information to Russia.
Of course.
He only had to pay a little bit of money. He is right back in business, and this I think it's
wrong. I think it's crazy. I think if this goes through, I mean, forget the fact that when I started, for those of you that are new here, when I started on the internet, I started on a platform called Twitch, which started as a video game platform and expanded. It's does a lot of different things now. But I played video games with friends. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'll just start streaming for the heck of it. Started growing, became part of what they called communities at the time. And then Twitch got rid of the communities function. And my community disappeared. A lot of the people that were part of it just stopped being on Twitch because they hated the fact that they did it. So I'm like, fine, I'm going to build my brand up again. Found this thing called Twitch Sings, which I was singing, did karaoke. I blew up. It was just growth. And it really grew once the pandemic hit because everyone was home and had time. So I was just singing literally 8 hours a day, every day, and growing like crazy. And I was about to go full time, or I was full time at that time. And then the whole digital music copyright crap started going on, and Twitch Sings decided they were shutting down the program. And once the program got shut down, even though most of the people that watch me are like, we will watch you no matter what. We just, it's you we love. It's not what you do. Well, that wasn't true. And I tried to keep going, build my brand up again. And it just didn't, nothing clicked. So I stepped away from streaming altogether for a while. And then I found TikTok and started growing this. So the mental strain on my brain, the idea of potentially having to build up, we're doing something great here, and maybe people will love it as much as we do, and then we'll be doing podcasts and being able to pay the bills from it. But
it's been years of our work. It is years of our work that we are looking at losing.
The idea of having to build my brand up a fourth time is depressing.
It's exhausting. Yeah.
It's depressing because every time that I've had to do it, it hasn't been because I screwed up. It was because I never got to, and maybe it is I screwed up to some extent. I mean, who knows? It's possible that what I do in general is not something that the masses in those different areas really wanted. But regardless, the idea is it's just exhausting. It's depressing, the idea of having to start over again.
It really is. I told my husband, I said, I feel like I'm about to get fired from my job from the White House. I didn't even do anything wrong, and I feel like I'm about to lose my job. Yeah, that's how, but when we were talking about, the Chinese security, so much of what we use here is, made by the Chinese, but they refuse to use it on their own citizens. I wonder, is China protecting our information more than Meta? Because if a United States company gets a hold of it, right, are they going to be able to sell our information? Because I'm off Facebook and I am off the internet. You can't find me unless I'm gone. And even with my information on TikTok, I'm still gone. So my concern is is it because we know that it's about money? Is this a privacy concern like they say it is? Or is this, again, just another cog of capitalism trying to earn a buck?
It definitely, it's hard to argue that it's not. I will admit that. I will also say, though, the one thing we need to remember about China is they are an extremely authoritarian and controlling government. They don't allow any information about anything out. To the point that the way their laws were set up, if you haven't heard, basically their banking structure is their economy is in absolute collapse. They've lost $6 or $7 trillion in the last year because they were artificially growing their economy by building millions of houses. They literally have full cities of high-rise buildings that nobody lives in.
That's insane. I have seen that on TikTok. There are videos of that.
And part of the other problem that, again, because of the way they run their government, people don't realize it, was the way they set up giving money to the different towns was based on growth. If you weren't growing, you wouldn't get as much money. So
Yeah.
the cities wouldn't. So they were actually the towns and cities were actually altering their numbers, their population, their growth numbers artificially. So they were they basically were like, we hit a point, who knows when this started, but they were literally like hundreds of millions of people off in what they thought their population was.
And again, just to be a devil's advocate, how do they look at our country, though? What would be their, how would they describe us as Americans, and not at all. Like, I concur, like, they are an incredibly authoritarian government, it just,
I mean,
I
you could
think
say that about any country.
yeah, that's true. Let's talk about, before we wrap up, let's talk about the 6 week.
Sure.
Let's talk about the 6 week
Yeah, let's
humanitarian pause.
Let's do it.
So Kamala Harris, she introduces this at Selma, which one of the members of the BIPOC community said this is as holy land as you can get in America, especially for the civil rights movement.
Civil rights movement.
Yes, yeah. Civil rights movement.
Yep.
And she announces a 6 week humanitarian pause. Now, so many people failed to listen to the words following that statement.
Okay, I heard you say that, and I will tell you, I did listen to it again to make sure that at least that I knew what I was hearing.
Yes,
or at least thought I knew.
There is a humanitarian pause, to get aid into Gaza, but it is also to help set up Israel to continue their defenses and to help them continue defending themselves. So I feel like it's almost like we're still refusing to pick sides. It's a shift in the narrative during the time of primaries. And again, it's just not enough. Like, we're looking at what do we need to get? Yeah, it's just not enough.
I won't argue that it's not enough. I cannot argue it, because I think anyone that argues that it's enough or too much has a poor view on humanity in general. So
yes, and I'm working for we've now rebranded to Salam and Solidarity. It is a mutual aid organization where we've been getting aid in like by foot. Like, it's been incredibly difficult. So in a way, it's almost a slap in the face to individuals that have had to and I'm not even talking about the individuals that are putting it, the people on the ground that have been, just, they're starving. We are literal starvation happening over there. Furthermore, when was the last time we put a humanitarian port in anywhere? That's weird. Well, and I know you hate it when I go tinfoil, so I will go to tinfoil, but it's just like, considering what we know is going on over there, I don't. But it also,
and again, I'm not going to defend any of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
The fact that even America, the staunchest ally of Israel, actually got, and this is where my brain, and again, I don't know everything, but my brain when I heard it was, holy shit. They could not, this is the only way in American government finally got to the point where they accepted the fact that it was so bad that they're willing to basically take their ships, go through any blockade Israel has, and say, we're bringing in humanitarian aid. Again, is it enough? No. Does it need to be longer? Yes. If you asked me 1 month ago if I would hear anybody say that we were gonna, that forget the 6 week. My thing on the 6 week is, I don't think that they could. I think that they were trying to convince them of a lot of different things. Maybe, and you may be right. It may be partially, if not mostly, because of politics. It would not surprise me at all. But also, I think to go from 4 days is what the last one was to 6 weeks. That's a pretty big jump.
It is, but it is.
But the humanitarian port thing, that was the one that felt like a huge win. And again, I know other people didn't feel like may not have felt it was as huge of a win, but that speaks more to the potential fracture that's starting to form between the United States and Israel than any of the others. You can argue that if they're just trying to work through the normal channels, then they may just not be trying hard enough. Who knows what they're saying in the background. I don't know. Maybe it's the part of me that wants to look at the good humanity.
It was just
I'm
thinking,
admitting that
normally
too.
this is so
I'm
flipped,
admitting
yeah.
that I will admit that there is part of me that when I look at a situation, I do want to see the good in humanity. And I know there are people that struggle to do that, especially now, and it's completely understandable.
Yeah, I was taught, prepare for the best and hope for the worst. Or did I say that right? Prepare for the worst and
Prepare for
hope
the
for the
worst,
best.
hope for the best.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
I'm kind of a little bit on the opposite. I think for me, I'm looking at this and I'm like, working for Salam and solidarity, seeing how difficult it is to get these aids and anything and everything, I was ecstatic. And also, I felt manipulated. And I didn't like that there was just this unease about it. We know that there is natural gas over there. And many individuals are wondering, is this just 6 weeks to build an American base over there? In order to get American boots on the ground.
I mean, arguably, there already are. There's a lot of bases in that area.
Yeah, and there are already a ton of American volunteers on the ground fighting for Israel. And I guess for me, it's just, this has been an incremental genocide, and it's been playing out since the 1970s.
And I will say this straight up. Biden and his administration should not expect anyone to trust anything they say. They shouldn't. Whether or not he is saying that it's true. It's like what I say when it comes to religion. No one can look at a Christian. If I say I'm a Christian, I don't expect anyone to believe that they can trust me. I have to show that they can trust me. And so if we're talking the upper level of how I look at what's going on, I'm glad they're talking about if they can get the 6 week. I think it's great. I think it will help. It can help especially if they can get the port in and they can get people the food and the medical supplies and everything else that they need. If it doesn't go any farther than that, then all the good graces that he earned from this mean nothing, which is why I will say again and again, the general election is still 7.5 months away.
Yes.
Absolutely. To make a decision right now based on what's happened in the last 4 months in my mind, is to ignore the fact that there are more than one human who has more than one different idea on how the world looks in this situation.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything Biden did, but I don't know everything. And I choose to acknowledge that I don't know everything. That's why I listen to as much as I can from every different source that I can. And when a win happens, I say, this is a great win. Let's see where it goes from here. It's why when we say the Democrats have done nothing, my argument is they've never really been given the chance. Give the whether or not you choose to vote, I'm saying instead of blaming, I'm saying give them 2 years. Republicans have had years where they've had basically the ability to do basically everything. It doesn't happen very often with Democrats. If it's only happened once where they could, for 3 months under the Obama administration, and they passed the Affordable Care Act. Give them 2 years. Let's see what they can do, because what Democrat-controlled states are showing is that Democrats are willing to put their people first.
Yeah. I will say, I do dig, excuse me, I do dig the uncommitted movement happening in the primaries right now. Because
this is your time. Speak up. I am
because right
down.
now this is, we're not digging in. We're not saying we are saying we're uncommitted and you have to earn our vote.
You have to earn it.
This I'm here for. This I'm here for. And what I will say is, like, while you're saying, don't say you will, I'm also saying, don't say you will, because this is our voice. Like, Absolutely. Don't just hand them your vote. They have to earn our vote. And right now, neither one of them are earning our vote. And no better way to tell both parties, not just the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party as well, that doesn't feel as though they're being represented by Trump. A way to deliver a message to the RNC and the DNC is to vote uncommitted. But yes, I am not in a place where I feel like I don't know what I'm going to do when I get into the voting. I don't know. Like I could tell you that if I had to go today, I would not vote for Biden or Trump, but I don't know where I'm going to feel in 7 months.
And
You
and
know,
in the end, it's what I've constantly said is when October comes around, I'm going to look at who's on my ballot. And I'm going to say, okay, if we're talking our country / the world, because there's both. You have to consider both. I know people don't want to, but you still have to. Which of the candidates that are on my ballot have the potential of doing the most good? And if it's a third party, then it's a third party. If it's Biden,
yeah.
then it's Biden. It's not going to be Trump. I don't care what amount of money you give me. I'm sorry, that will never
No,
happen. It hasn't happened since 2016, and it never will. And I've said I will never, at this point, with the Republican Party the way it is, I will never vote for a Republican until they change the way they stand on certain things. I cannot. We're talking
absolutely.
empathy to humanity when it comes to the Republican Party right now, or lack thereof, I should say. And
It is a moral compass issue.
yep.
1000%.
It's one thing when it's an economy thing. It's one thing when it's when you're talking about how size of government thing. This is different. This is when people's lives are endangered because of what's coming out of their mouths. I can't in good conscience even consider it at this point.
No way. And I mean, and that, which is why I think we also have to get behind the push of locals. Really, this election, we really have to focus on our local offices, because let's assume that you're just like that Biden doesn't turn around in the way that progressives need or in the way that independents need. What is our next step to making sure that Trump cannot accomplish the horrific things that he would like to accomplish? And that is to do the same thing to the Republican president that they have done to a Democratic president. So if we know, if we're looking at this and we're like, we are probably going to get Trump, we have got to get it's got to be blue. It's got
to be blue if the only other option, if literally the only other option is Republican. I still say the best thing that could happen for our country as a whole is, and again, this has nothing to, I don't know enough about any of the parties as a whole to speak on them, but it means Green Party candidates. It means whatever the names. I know there are other ones, but they need to start running for those local offices and stop focusing on the presidency, because they are not going to win. And the people that run for president under third party are not expecting to win. They know they are not going to win. They are doing it for money, for clout, for opportunity that comes after, especially if they are big name people. I'm sorry. You can disagree with me all they want. If you love Jill Stein or whatever is or RFK Jr. or I can't remember his name.
I think that there are just people naive enough to think that is.
I mean, some may be, but I think I honestly believe like Jill Stein knows she's not going to win. She already's tried twice.
She has. I gotta give it. Like, I can't even look at her for that.
She knows she's not going to win. Marianne Williamson came back.
Yeah. I do appreciate it. Pushes the platform. It pushes the platform. I do agree. It pushes the platform. Are they a self-sacrificing member just to push the platform? Like, or am I being the naive one right now? Because I mean, I thought Bernie Sanders was that one, and now you have Bernie Sanders working for the administration.
I think, but again, I think Bernie Sanders, I believe, is looking at the future the way
you are.
Yes, the way some of those vote blue no matter who people are looking at it. He also knows more than we know.
But you're not vote blue no matter who.
I am not vote blue no matter who.
Yeah, let's not put you in a box by any means.
But I think he talks to these people all the time. He talks to these people when they're not on camera. He has a better idea of what they're willing to say all over the place. And again, whether or not you think Biden should be, Bernie has earned enough respect over the years to at least listen to him when he says, I'm going to vote for Biden. Whether or not you end up agreeing with him and do it, I believe he is one of those people that has stood by his morals enough that he's earned at least some level of listening to, where some people are just not worth listening to at all, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But we're not going to go in there because we are out of time.
That's so sad. It was so bad this week.
We could go another hour, and that's great. Yeah. which is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
and
thank
we're
you.
looking to break guests and expand.
Yep.
So make sure and subscribe.
Make sure to like and subscribe. I've never done YouTube videos enough, so I don't do it. But yes, everyone, if you like what you're hearing, we would admonish you to like and subscribe so you can be, if you're on YouTube, so you can be alerted when the next podcast comes out. Please follow both of us on our social, specifically TikTok. But we both have YouTube channels as well. The links will be down below. You can obviously, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, again, please follow us so you will be notified when the new episodes come out. Yeah.
Share with your friends.
Share it with your friends. Absolutely. But thank you so much for everyone that did spend time listening to us. Again, like and subscribe or follow, share, anything you can do to help grow this movement we're trying to make, which is learning how to disagree and but still have respectful discussions and potentially grow and learn, and make sure you tell everyone to vote. Doesn't matter. I don't care who you vote for. If you decide to vote for third party, that's fine. But if you don't vote, you can't say that. You can't say things like my vote doesn't matter, because in my opinion, at that moment, your opinion doesn't matter because you're not letting your voice really be heard because you're not trying for the change that you're saying you want. Anyways, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miriam, for spending time with us. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, please. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.